Welcome back to Guided by Faith. I'm your host, Jay Holland. I hope that the first real true week of 2026 is a blessing to you. And we are seeking this week to learn to build the kind of life that has a resilient faith, whether the day's going great or whether the worst storms in the world are happening. Jesus promises us that calamity is going to happen. And I hope 2026 is awesome for you. But I know there's going to be some storms. I know there's going to be some difficult things that you have to go through. Some of you may be small level difficult, some major crisis. But one way or another, until Jesus comes back, we're going to encounter troubles. And Jesus says if we're the wise person that builds our life on his teachings, we'll be like the house that stands in the storm, that stays strong and resilient and provides safety and structure to others. And ultimately, the teachings of Jesus can be summarized in the great commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbors yourself. This week, I've been unpacking different aspects of the way God created you and how you might engage in a love relationship with God through these aspects. So we've talked about how God created you with spirit. Like you have a spirit, and you can use that spirit to connect with God through time with God, in Bible study, reading God's word, prayer, and in worship. And I even defined worship as singing, serving, giving, gathering together with the church. There's lots of different ways to worship the Lord. There's even more ways than that, but that gives you a good start. We talked about loving God with our bodies by remembering these are the bodies God gave us for our whole life, and we want to eat intentionally. We want to move and train our bodies so that we are primed and ready for service for as long as God gives us in our life. Yesterday, we talked about developing the practices of focusing and playing as a way to love God with our minds. So we want to learn to be able to concentrate and pay attention because God's trying to get our attention, and then play because God did make us for joy and laughter and love, and that creates a full life. And it helps your mind decompress so you're not so stressed. Today, speaking of stress, that'll help us to kind of think through what we are talking about today. I want to help you learn to love God with your emotions. Now, when we talk about emotions, it's really important for you to remember that God is the one that created you with emotions. People tend to be on one of two sides of the pendulum. Some people refuse to deal with their emotions at all. They just kind of stuff them down. They've been raised in households that are kind of emotionally backwards. They're not free to express how they feel. This is often the case with men, but it's sometimes the case with females as well, with women that you've just kind of lived and grown and been trained in an environment to not deal with your emotions. And when you do that, your emotions come out in all kinds of ways that are unhealthy. The other side of the pendulum are people that are so sensitive to their emotions that the emotions have kicked their mind and their body and their spirit out of the driver's seat, and the emotions drive the bus. And we never want to let our emotions drive the bus. We want to remember something. God created me with emotions, and my emotions are always telling me something very accurate. What they're telling me is how I'm experiencing this current event or how I'm experiencing the world right now. But the emotions aren't always telling me the truth about the event. You know, in your relationship with your parents, your emotions might be telling you they hate me and they're not for me and they're just oppressive. So your emotions are telling you like, I'm angry, I'm mad, and everything's unfair. But that doesn't mean that that's actually true. It just means that's how you're experiencing it. And so you want to learn to notice your emotions, to identify your emotions. And here's the important thing. If you can't name your emotions, if it's just in there and you feel something that's off and you don't have the words to describe it, that emotion tends to have a lot of power over you. And I want you and I want myself to be people that love God through our emotions. And part of that is acknowledging that our emotions are good, that all of the emotions we feel are not necessarily good, but that we are emotional is good. And I want to learn how to pay attention to my emotions, to name my emotions, to take my emotions to Jesus, and to then have a practice that will help point my emotions in the right direction. So I'm going to give you kind of a weird practice for how to love God with your emotions. One of them that'll be, you're like, oh, that's obvious. The other, really weird. Let's start with a weird one. We do this thing in our youth group. We do this thing around my dinner table called highs, lows, and buffaloes. Highs, lows, and buffaloes. And what that is each person shares what was your high point of the day or the week, depending on when we got together. What was your low point, and what was your buffalo? Now, high's easy to understand. Low's easy to understand. A buffalo. So why buffalo? Well, I live in South Florida. And if I'm going anywhere and I see a buffalo, that's a weird thing. That's like really out of the ordinary. You don't see buffalo in Florida. And so that would be something that would just strike me as odd and out of the blue. And so as I'm looking through my days, this was a high, this was a low, and this was something strange or something weird or something unique that happened. And so first thing I want to do is just be able to think through my highs and lows. And then the cool thing is to go back then and remember, what was I feeling during that high time? What was I feeling during that low time? And what was I feeling during that weird time? The reason this is so important is I began to practice this, and I actually went through a series where I would list everything that happened in my day, trying to thank God for it. And I noticed something, that there were many times when I was experiencing something really good and my emotions didn't match up with it. I was in the middle of something good, something that I loved, and I was negative and sour and bitter. And what I learned is that I was letting one single event that wasn't even happening at the moment drive the bus for how I was feeling during many, many good things. And by just becoming aware of that, I learned how to take it to Jesus and say, Jesus, I want to be present where I am. I want to experience the emotions of the gifts that you're giving me. And so I give this to you, and I ask you to help me to live grateful in the moment that I'm in. So by noticing my emotions, I was able to kind of get out of this emotional funk. I use the word grateful. That's the second practice. So practice number 1 for you, highs, lows, and buffaloes. Practice number 2, gratitude. Every day, an intentional, focused time of gratitude. And if you will do this over a long period of time, it will have revolutionary effect on your life. Many of you know I just wrote a book, Renewed, the 365-day Christian Gratitude Journal. If you want a copy of that, you can find a link in the show notes. It's a great way to practice intentional gratitude every day. You don't want your emotions to drive the bus in your life. You want them to be helpful. You don't want them to drive the bus. And by practicing simply highs, lows, and buffaloes, where you notice your emotions and take them to Jesus and focus gratitude, you will begin to help rein in your emotions, be emotionally intelligent. An emotionally intelligent person is a resilient person that can be a blessing for others. So let's learn to love God through our emotions instead of stuffing them, ignoring them, or letting them blow up and cause catastrophe around us.